Today we are continuing our Futures Thinking 101 series by looking at another Futures Thinking method. This one has the not so imaginative name of the 7-question method. So 7 questions is a structured interview technique used to gather strategic insights from a range of internal and external stakeholders. The end result of running this technique is you have a set of written up interviews detailing different perspectives of what the future might be like, what success in the future could be, and what needs to be done to achieve that. Those interview summaries are then turned into an issue paper, which summarizes the key themes from the interviews, highlighting insights and information and sharing differing perspectives. So the 7 questions method or technique was pioneered by Shell, the oil company, in its scenario planning process. It is a powerful tool for gathering opinions from diverse stakeholders on strategic issues that need to be addressed and for highlighting areas of agreement or conflict about the best way forward. Typically, most of the insights will occur within the first dozen or so internal interviews. External stakeholders can be especially useful to get a different perspective on certain issues or policy responses. All of the interviews are conducted under the Chatham House rule, which is that the interviewees can be quoted, but they must remain anonymous. This is essential to get the best and most honest answers out of your interviewees. So what are the 7 questions? Well, they can be tailored or rewritten for your own use, but generally this is the format that they take. The first one being time traveler. You ask your kind participant if they had the opportunity to spend time with someone who knew future outcomes, for example, a time traveler, what information would you seek and what would you consider the most critical issue for the future? You'll notice that this question, like the 6 others, is open-ended. And as an interviewer, your goal is to have your interviewee be comfortable and to let them talk. Provide as little input and prompting as is needed to keep the interview flowing, but you don't want to steer or influence their answers at all. Question number 2 is the optimistic outcome. So if things went really well, what would be the signs that things are going really well? And what is this person's vision of success? The next question, no prizes for guessing, is pessimistic outcome. So how could the environment change to make things more difficult? How could the initiative, whatever initiative that is we're looking at here, how could that go wrong? What are the dangers of not achieving this vision? And what things does this person worry about? Internal situation is regarding the culture, organization, systems, resources, people within whichever company or organization your interviewee is a part of. And how might these need to be changed to achieve the optimistic outcome? Obviously, we're not aiming for the pessimistic outcome. Next question is looking back, and this will be familiar to anyone who does retrospectives in their teams, maybe working in Agile or Scrum. How did we get to where we are today? What are the successes that we can build on? What can we learn from things that didn't go so well? Looking forward, what decisions need to be made in the near term to achieve the desired long-term outcome? What needs to be done now? And the final question, which goes by a few names, here I've called it Anything Goes. So I think that's an easier way to understand it. If you had the power to make anything happen, is there anything else that you would do? So this is very much an open-ended question. You're telling the interviewee that they've got the power to do anything at all. What would they do to make sure that their desired outcome manifests itself. So let's summarize the 7 questions. We have time traveler, optimistic outcome, pessimistic outcome, internal situation, looking back, looking forward, and anything goes. So once you have done your interviews, then the end result is this issue paper that we've talked about. So drawing out the conclusions from the 7 question interviews, you can do that as the interviews progress. Once each interview is complete, you can highlight the quotes that seem to be most important in each interview. So you might spot these by using your knowledge of the area that your interviewee is talking about with a bit of intuition. You may notice where issues come up repeatedly, or where your interviewee will say something like, this one is particularly key, this one is really important. And also by identifying comments that run counter to the accepted view. And for the first few interviews, simply list the quotes as bullet points. Think about lightly editing the quotes to remove any references that might cause the interviewee to be identified. Remember the Chatham House rules, we want to keep this entirely anonymous. And as the interviews proceed, keep selecting key quotes and add them to your draft issue paper. Probably after 4 or 5 interviews, you'll start to notice some themes occurring, and you can begin to group your quotes accordingly. Let these themes evolve naturally, and they will almost certainly change and evolve as you draw in more interviews. Then you can group your quotes together within each theme according to correlation or opposition of viewpoints. Classic compare and contrast, like any good school essay. Try to identify some links and some causality between the themes. The grouping of the quotes will create its own narrative. And remember that you are reporting the issues that are being raised by the interviewees. You are not commenting on them. So you keep your personal views and input out of the issue paper. That's not the aim of this exercise. You are the person who puts it together. The insights come from the interviewees, not you. If you find any of the views or comments challenging or uncomfortable, then chances are they'll be even more worthy of consideration in the later part of whatever futures project this 7 questions method is part of. You could do this method by itself for its own sake, but although it's a very simple technique, it does require a lot of effort. So on the previous slide, we mentioned that interviews may take about an hour per person. If you're looking for a dozen or more interviews to take place, that's 12 hours. Ideally, you can have 2 people, 2 interviewers with each interviewee, just to ensure that the quotes and relevant information is captured. So that's 24 work hours. So it's not an undertaking to be done lightly. It will almost certainly be part of a larger futures project. And you can use the findings from the 7 question interviews to suggest priority areas for horizon scanning, or you may want to run this at the same time as some horizon scanning. The output can also be used to inform visioning or SWOT analysis or policy stress testing. So that's the end of our quick rundown of the 7 questions method. Very useful, very powerful, not quick, not particularly easy to do. But if you have the right people, which is the main point to remember, you need a diverse range of stakeholders. Otherwise, you will have practically identical results. If you get the right people in the room, let them speak freely under Chatham House rules so they can be anonymous, you can end up with some really interesting and powerful insights that can make a big difference in the future of your company or your organization. So as usual, I hope this has been useful for you. If you have any questions or comments about this method, leave it in the comments below or contact me directly. And I will see you in the next Futures Thinking video. Thank you.